This video is brought to you by Saturday's video. If you haven't yet, please click the link in the description below to vote for your favorite character of 2024. Also, whether you agree on these lists or not, do hit like or dislike, comment and subscribe if you enjoyed the content, since it does help out the channel and it keeps me motivated to make more. Hello everyone and welcome to the top 10 heart characters on Bleach Brave Souls. Before I begin, do keep in mind that this is just opinion, everyone plays the game differently, so obviously opinions will vary. I tried to find a good balance, but there's never any pleasing everybody. That said, if you find yourself disagreeing, then get in the comments and rage! Because at the end of the day, even that helps the algorithm. That's right, your anger works for me now. Kicking things off, we have the 5th Espada from one of my favorite banner themes of all time, the Future Society. He may be a resource character with Link Slot Potion abilities and Soul Trait, but that doesn't mean he doesn't also pack a punch. Nnoitora has a high SP as well as Berserker at 40% and Frenzy at 2. His attacks have great range thanks to Havoc being at 20, and all of his attacks have a chance to inflict debilitating laceration. If he does, his SP increases by 80%. Not only that, but he also deals 60% more damage to any lacerated enemy. Not only because he can spam these attacks thanks to his strong attack recharge ability, but because he also has Disabler against mind attribute enemies. Not to mention that his first two strong attacks are also hybrid vortex moves, which increases the hit count, thus increasing the chance of inflicting laceration. Combine all this with a complete status immunity and guard break, and you have yourself a character that would have been way beyond number 1 last time I made this list. The last time I made it, Quincy killers would have been a problem since they weren't that relevant, but now they very much are. I still think he could have done with a little bit of a better Link, but even that has its uses. Honestly, I just hope that the Future Society banners weren't a one-off thing.
まあ見てなよ。これが僕からのプレゼントだよ。
Okay, so Gremmy was kind of hard to place here, not only because high attacking characters are a little harder to place than high SP characters, but also because he's a very unique character, and being a Guild Quest character makes him all the more difficult to place. Though I should point out something I noticed when making this list, is that 4 out of the last 6 heart characters are basically just this guy. Seriously, go look it up. Out of the last 6 heart characters, only Ichigo and Byakuya are not high attack Guild Quest characters. It's a strange move on Caleb's part, and I don't know if they've noticed, but I certainly have. Anyway, out of the 4, Gremmy is definitely the most impressive, with a really high attack as well as flurry at 1, 2 in Guild Quest, a 70% bruiser as well as a 35% normal attack link, poise, long reach, marauder, and not 1, but 2 boost moves, which we'll get to in a bit. He's also got Booster, an increase in his killer, with an even greater increase in Guild Quest. He starts with 15 barriers, he's completely immune to weakening, and he dodges 50% of Soul Reaper damage. If this sounds absolutely insane to you, it's because it is. The power creep is just that much and he's only at number 9. Though depending on what you do most, he would certainly place higher. This is why these are just opinion. Now let's move on to his strong attacks. As I mentioned before, he has 2 boost moves, Strong Attack 1 and a Strong Attack 3. Both boost the entire party and benefit from Booster and Enhancer, but the amount of boost they provide is not the same, with his Strong Attack 3 providing a greater boost than the Strong Attack 1. That said, the recharge time is also different. His Strong Attack 1 comes back after 20 seconds, while his Strong Attack 3 comes back after a full minute. Then there's his Strong Attack 2. It's not a boost move, and it certainly doesn't deal that much damage, but it's not a wasted attack. It's a vortex move that surrounds him and staggers the enemies around him. Its recharge time is 24 seconds, effectively making Gremmy the character with the least spammable strong attacks. But that's okay, he's not really a strong attacking character, and even without the boost, he's a really good character. And in the Guild Quest specific list, there would be very few characters that could compete with him. Still, even outside of Guild Quest, he's a force to be reckoned with.
おとなしく見てろよ。よら。ゆっと。
Next up is quite possibly the oldest character on this list, the Parasol version of Bruno. Now, as I'm sure many of you have noticed, anytime they make Burn the Witch characters, they always make them to stand the test of time. And with good reason, since there's only a handful of them and it's not like you can keep spamming their banners. Bruno here was made exceptionally well. He has a really high SP as well as Frenzy at 2, Berserker at 40%, 2 killers of Hollow and Espada, debilitating weakening on all of his attacks as well as Havoc at 20, a strong attack recharge link, Marauder, Sprinter at 2, and Long Stride. If that's not future-proofing, I don't know what is. And he only gets better, because he's also a gauge character, who not only starts their gauge meter at 70% full, but gains a whole lot of very useful abilities when it's activated. For one thing, his SP shoots up by 50%. It's not the 80 we're used to now, but that's more than made up for with his other abilities. His Berserker goes from 40 to a whopping 140%. He also heals for 30% of his health, and his strong attack recharge gets reduced by 30%, letting him spam his attacks even further and fill up the gauge for the next onslaught quickly. Also, he gets damage reduction at 20%, which is useful but definitely the least impressive of all these abilities. All this with a beyond full screen strong attack 3, a near full screen strong attack 2, and a hybrid vortex move strong attack 1 that has a higher likelihood of inflicting weakening, and you've got yourself a very, very good character. Oh, also, he's completely immune to status elements. Seriously, the list of the abilities these guys have is getting longer and longer, and he's not even new.
ちょっと待ってなさいよあんたにも味見させてあげるわ
Next up, we have the Valentine's version of Riruka, who has no reason to be this strong. He has a really high SP as well as Frenzy at 2, Berserker at 40%, Havoc at 20, a full stamina damage link at 30, and a strong tech recharge ability, weaken defense on her special, Devastation at 60, long stride, and can inflict debilitating drain on all of her attacks. And if she does, her SP increases by 80%. She also gets progressively better as you use her, because after 10 enemies are defeated, her Berserker goes from 40 to 60. After 25, her full stamina damage goes from 30 to 50, and after 50, the entire team's strong attack damage increases by 20%. And while I normally dislike full stamina damage abilities, it is completely different when the character has an active ability to heal themselves. Riruka definitely does. As I mentioned, she can inflict debilitating drain on all of her attacks, but she also has an ability that heals the entire party for 20% of their health anytime they enter a new area. Additionally, she has Siphoner, which has a chance to randomly inflict drain on an enemy every 5 seconds. Her strong attacks are also really impressive, with a beyond full screen strong attack 3, a beam shot strong attack 1 that's pretty much the length of a full screen, and a strong attack 2 that's a hybrid vortex move, who gathers enemies in one spot before pushing them back, perfect for crowd control, as well as avoiding enemy specials. Though as I mentioned, she also has long strike for that. As a cherry on top, or I guess sprinkles in her case, she's also completely immune to being burnt.
ダメですよこれで終わりです
Okay, so now's a good time as any to mention that I'm going to be doing something specific with the number 6 slot on these lists. Since PvP is such a specific thing that realistically not everyone partakes in, I figured that I'd reserve the number 6 slot on these lists unless the character is spectacular for PvP characters, and that's where Meninas comes in. She has an incredibly high attack as well as flurry at 2. And in PvP, for the first 10 seconds, that flurry is at 3. She's also got invincibility for the first 10 seconds, can ignore others' invincibility, can also prevent their last-ditch survival, and can pierce through others' barriers. She's also incredibly difficult to knock out, not only because she attacked when being attacked thanks to poise, but after the first half of her health is gone, the amount of damage she takes is halved. And it was already not that much thanks to her link of damage reduction at 21%. Additionally, she also has persistence, meaning if she were to be knocked out, she stays at 1 HP for 5 seconds, immune from all damage. She also has a low stamina damage boost of 60% once her health gets below a certain threshold. Finally, all of her attacks can inflict confusion, though it's not debilitating, which, if we're being honest, is for the best. She would be broken. Since characters typically don't have immunity to confusion alone, it's usually one of the other status elements or to all of them altogether. Still, at the end of the day, even without all her specific to PvP abilities, she's still a really good character, thanks to that flurry at 2. She may be a bit slow outside of PvP, but can still pack a punch.
さあその身に受けなさい我がポルシュテンデッヒピスキエルの力を
Next up is another character who's pretty difficult to place, Quilge. Is that how you say his name? Whatever. He has a really high SP as well as Frenzy at 2. He also has Guard Break, and all of his attacks have a chance to inflict debilitating drain. And they're very likely to, we'll get to why in just a bit. But if he does, his SP goes up by 80%. Not only that, he also deals 40% more damage to drained enemies. At full health, he also deals 20% more damage, which, I mean, it's drained, he's very likely to have full health. And by default, he increases the strong attacks of all heart characters, including himself, by 20%. So while he may not have Berserker, he definitely more than makes up for it, especially with with Rampage. He's one of few characters who has Rampage, and those who do only get stronger as time goes by, since the amount of damage they deal increases by 2% for every enemy defeated, up to 100%. Though since they do have to be the ones to defeat him, the quality of this ability changes depending on what you're doing. Still, it's a very, very good ability, and one that can drastically increase the strength of a character in seconds. Now let's talk about his strong attacks. Not only can he spam them more than others thanks to a strong attack recharge link at 14, but they're also incredibly useful, with a beyond full screen strong attack 3, a beam shot strong attack 1, and a seeking vortex strong attack 2, which is pretty much guaranteed to have his SP boosted at 80% almost always, not to mention the full health. Oh, also he has poise, so no interruption on his attacks. He's also completely immune to being frozen, and he has guard break. Alright, I'm hungry. I'm gonna go get some food. That was delicious. Next up we have this Ichigo. I don't know what kind of version I should call him, just because he's like 1000-year Blood War, but there's many 1000-year Blood War, and he's a dual wielder, but there's many dual wielding whatever, you're looking at him. This Ichigo has a really high SP as well as Frenzy at 2. He's got not 1 but 2 links, strong attack damage and strong attack recharge, the best possible combination, and 2 killers of Soul Reaper and Sturmritter. He can also inflict both debilitating, weakening, and laceration with all of his attacks, and has an increased chance of doing so on all Soul Reapers and Quincy's. When he does, not only does his SP increase by 80%, but he also ends up dealing 60% more damage to lacerated enemies and 40% more to weakened enemies. He is completely immune to all status ailments, he has Bombardment, can hit hidden enemies, and he has Marauder, plus he has Sprinter at 2 and Long Stride. His attacks all have excellent range thanks in part to Havoc at 20, with his Beam Shot Strong Attack 1, Lunge Move Strong Attack 2, and a hard-hitting Strong Attack 3 that's also a charge move. You don't necessarily have to use it as one, but you definitely should. It deals small bits of continuous damage as it's charging, and when it releases, it hits hard. All of these attacks technically have beyond full screen range too, and thanks to having poise and an immunity to all status elements, these attacks cannot be interrupted. All of this make him a very versatile character, that's why he ended up so high up on this list.
よく見るがいい。これは視界。ただの千本桜だ。
So these next two were really hard to place, since they're both extraordinary characters. But at number 3 we do have Byakuya, the newest 1000-year Blood War version. Like all other high SP characters on this list, he also has Frenzy at 2, Byakuya also has Berserker at 60, and a full stamina damage innate skill at 40%. If he inflicts a status ailment, his SP goes up by 80%, and he has an ability that allows Soul Reapers to deal 30% more damage to any enemy with a status ailment. Speaking of status ailment, he's completely immune to all of them, and all of his attacks have a chance to inflict both debilitating paralysis and weakening. You can spam them thanks to his strong attack recharge link at 14, and they have extra range thanks to Havoc being at 20. His strong attack 1 is a beam shot, his strong attack 2 is very near full screen, and his strong attack 3 is beyond full screen. He also has an EX move that hits a very wide area around him, deals massive damage, can also inflict paralysis and weakening, and also grants him and the party barriers. Byakuya has a Human Killer Plus, as well as Disabler against humans. Byakuya also has Poise Break, which is a very handy ability, but particularly handy against humans, since there are particular human types that deal a lot of damage. Finally, there's a special. Not only does it inflict paralysis and weakening, which makes for more damage since their defense is lowered, but he also has bombardment and weakened defense, effectively making it one of the strongest specials. On top of all this, he's also got Sharpshooter, which if I'm being honest, it feels like that and Marauder are kind of staples for 1000-year Blood War characters at this point. Still, it's a great ability to have.
よく帰ってきた、氷蓮丸。ごぼう製にしてやれなくてすまなかったな。
Next up is the Hollow Bankai version of Toshiro, a character who I have been waiting to come to this game for a long time. And boy did he not disappoint. This Toshiro has a really high SP as well as Frenzy at 2, Berserker at 50%, 2 links of strong attack recharge and strong attack damage, and a whole lot of abilities that are about to sound really familiar. Remember how I said both him and Byakuya were hard to place? This is because like Byakuya, he also has Sharpshooter, also increases his SP when inflicting a status ailment, also has Bombardment, also has weakened defense on his special, is also completely immune to status ailments, and also has Disabler on the enemies he has killers for. except his is better because he has 2 killers, no affiliation and Stirnritter, though the disabler applies for all Quincy's, not just Stirnritter. Additionally, and similarly to Byakuya, he increases damage dealt to status ailment to enemies, but only for Heart Soul Reapers, as opposed to Byakuya's Soul Reaper across the board. That said, Toshiro increases it by 40 compared to Byakuya's 30, but that's only if they're not frozen, because if they are, he deals 100% more damage. Think about it, that's 140% damage before he self-boosts by 70% thanks to Berserker and the Link, plus the 80% SP boost and Frenzy at 2. That is a whole lot of damage. And he's very likely to freeze enemies too. All of his attacks have a chance to inflict debilitating freeze, with a Beam Shot Strong Attack 1, Beyond Full Screen Strong Attack 3, and a Strong Attack 2 that's a hybrid Vortex move. Then there's his EX move, which lays down an Ice Trap and has an increased chance of inflicting freeze. If they gave this guy all of this, I shudder to think what they're gonna give adult Toshiro when he finally gets remade. Now before moving on to number 1, here are a few honorable mentions. And please don't forget to click the link in the description below to vote on your favorite character of 2024, because I honestly can't make that list without you.
安心しろ。助けに来たぜ。
次は全て見えているぞ。お前が踏み出す一歩も、その先の希望も。
迷子ですか？いいものを見せてあげましょう。どうぞ。
鉄拳確かぜ。
食物を操るということは命を操るということ。この命の木からは逃げられやしないよ。
月が天使！
And finally, and you knew this was coming, at number 1, we have the newest 1000-year Blood War version of Ichigo. This guy starts out at a 10 and moves to an 11 as the quest progresses. Not only does he have the highest SP in the entire game, but he also has Berserker at 60%, Frenzy at 3, and can inflict Weakening Plus on all of his attacks. Tell me if this sounds familiar. You're doing Guild Quest, hoping to get that 80% SP boost, when one of your non-playable characters inflicts the status ailment on the boss. Now you have to wait for that status ailment to run out, in the hopes that you can maybe inflict yours and get that 80% boost. Well, that's the thing of the past with this character, since with Weakening Plus he can inflict it on top of whatever ailment affects the enemy you're hitting. And if it's a Quincy, all the better, because not only does he have a Quincy Plus killer, but he also has Disabler against Quincy's. He's also got Poise and Poise Break, Marauder, a complete status immunity, Sprinter at 2, Long Stride, Weakened Defense on his special, Devastation at 60, which can increase and we'll get to how in a bit, a boosted Strong Attack Recharge Link, Havoc at 20, and great range on his strong attacks with a Beyond Full Screen Strong Attack 3, a Beam Shot Strong Attack 1, and a Strong Attack 2 that hits a very wide area in front of him. Don't ask me why I did it in that order. And as I mentioned earlier, this character gets better the longer the quest goes on, because after 20 enemies defeated, the melee damage he inflicts, which is all of his damage, goes up by 20%. After 40 enemies, the entire party gets their strong attacks faster every time they enter a new area. After 60, his devastation goes from 60 to 120, and after 80, he gains an additional use of his special. This guy, and his entire banner to be honest, was a great way to both end and start the year, and I cannot wait to see what 2025 has in store. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, do hit like and subscribe to the channel. You hear it a lot, and it's true, it does really help out. And also don't forget to vote on your favorite character of 2024.